Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, friends and colleagues from across the world. Today we are here for our second Podinar session of the weekend with a very special guest, Dr. Roxie Mooney. Thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
It's quite an honor to have this special Podinar with you about how doctors can innovate their path to profit. But before we get into this discussion, which I'm personally going to hopefully learn a lot from, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping. Dear colleagues, if you'd like to claim your CE in the side comments or below comments, depending on what platform you're on, we will list a link where you can go and register for that. The latest announcements are that the Universal School of Health is in full swing for its first inaugural class in January. And we look forward to setting up in the next 3 months next to an award-winning hospital. And all of our doctor colleagues from any industry, from anywhere in the globe, is welcome to join the doctor-to-doctor movement. And as you guys may know, our motto remains to learn from doctors and do one and teach one. So today we're turning to a business expert with an amazing background, which I had the fortunate time to learn from when I was working on my innovations and continue to. But a little background about Dr. Roxie, if I may. Her career has revolved around helping health tech innovators uncover their most profitable and viable strategies, from early adoption to pivoting. She transformed 20 years of business practice, 7 years of researching over 500 plus peer-reviewed articles and 200 plus interviews with health innovators into a reputable method to go from an idea to full-scale adaptation. She advises startups and emerging healthcare brands and has been involved in 3 successful exits. I must also add that she conducts her own podcast for healthcare providers to spread information and knowledge. She currently serves as the healthcare communication strategist and digital health advisor of Legacy DNA. She's also the international best-selling author of How Health Innovators Maximize Market Success, Strategies to Launch and Commercialize Healthcare Innovations, as well as host of the podcast and video show Health Innovators. It's all music to our ears, Doctor. We love it when our doctor colleagues have such a tremendous career. And on it goes. I could sit here. I've been fascinated just being with Dr. Roxie for a couple of weeks about all the things that she has done. She's an associate professor of marketing at Jack Welch Management Institute and 2 other universities, actually, and an adjunct professor of gender leadership and coaching and consulting at Palm Beach Atlantic University. She's also board member of One Person nonprofit organization committed to restoring the lives and dreams of sex trafficking survivors. She holds a doctorate of business administration with a marketing specialization from Walden University. And on it goes. And if that's not enough, she has also carried additional postgraduate studies on disruptive strategy under Clayton Christensen at Harvard Business School. We have a Christensen in dentistry too. We call him the father of modern dentistry, Doctor. Tell us a little bit about that. He's the father of, you would consider him one of the pioneers in the space, right?
Yes, definitely. Father of a lot of innovation theory that we practice today.
So, Doc, what is your motivation? I know, and you know, that there's lack of business acumen from doctors due to the lack of training in professional schools. What brought you to the space to help healthcare providers?
Well, early on in my career, I worked with a number of healthcare entrepreneurs in the early 2000s, and I was able to see that, we were doing some incredible things and able to see that we were really on this precipice of this explosion of innovation in healthcare. This was before the Affordable Care Act. And, I was helping leaders build brands from the ground up that were doing great things like pay for performance business models. Like I said, before the Affordable Care Act had even come out. So at that point, I really started to get passionate passionate about healthcare. And a few years later, I decided to go back to school and get my doctorate. I had gone out on my own, launched Legacy DNA as a healthcare marketing agency, and I had been doing a lot of business coaching, but I'm frankly, I'm addicted to learning. And so I went back to school to get my doctorate in business. And one of the first questions that they ask is, what is the business problem that you want to be married to, right? Because you're going to be eating, sleeping, and drinking with this thing. And so for me, kind of linking back to the story that I shared about this explosion of innovation in healthcare, I had come across this statistic that 95% of innovations that are brought to market fail to reach any adequate level of customer adoption or financial ROI. And that really just stopped me in my tracks, because I thought, gosh, we've got all of this challenges, this broken healthcare system around the world that we're trying to fix. But how are we really going to transform the industry if majority of these innovative ideas that people are bringing to market aren't getting in the hands of the people that need them the most? And all of the research that I've done shows that, people aren't failing because they don't have great technology. It's because they don't have the business acumen or the commercialization expertise to really go from that idea to this repeatable, predictable revenue model. So at that point, I decided I was just going to make it my mission in my career to figure out what strategies and tactics innovators needed to deploy and which ones they needed to avoid in order to, start moving the needle, be part of that 5% that succeeds, or, let's even start moving the needle anymore and start to see that success rate, start to increase pretty drastically. Because, I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but that we're in healthcare. And so we're not innovating iPhones or, things that matter but don't really matter. I mean, these are things that we're innovating that saves lives or improves quality of lives. And, it could be our friends or our family or even ourselves that need these innovations. And, God forbid that we don't have access to it. Our family and friends don't get access to it. And only because those innovations are sitting in what I call the zombie graveyard, because they didn't know how to create their path to profit. And so it was a great idea, could have made a lot of business impact, but really had a lot of failure along the way. And so that's really what keeps me up at night and really drives me to do all the things that I do, is wanting to kind of come alongside innovators, link arms with them, and help them increase their likelihood of success.
What do you think? Well, first and foremost, that's a great need. There's a great need for what you do. Healthcare still remains industry number one. And unfortunately, a lot of third parties that don't have any fraternity to our industry want to play in this space because it's very lucrative. And unfortunately, those ideas that my colleagues have, probably 90+% of them don't make it to market. There's always a reason, be it we didn't know, we overspent here, we didn't have the resources there, we hired too many people, whatever it is, right? So you have found a system to streamline this, and that's wonderful. And many of our colleagues that will be listening to this presentation will be able to reach out to you. But what do you say to that person that falls pretty hard in business at first, a doctor with a little less acumen? This is the problem we are having, is that our business acumen, or lack thereof, is being taken advantage of by third parties in medicine and healthcare. How do we change that, Doc?
I think that we either get really passionate about acquiring that business acumen, or we link arms with others, or a combination of the two. We link arms with others that are experts, right? We really understand what our strengths and our skills are, and then make sure that we're collaborating with the right people that aren't going to take advantage of us, that, have reviews, have testimonials, that they can be trustworthy, get referrals, and of working with people that are going to not take advantage of what you don't know, but really in an integral way come alongside you and help you be more successful. And you're right. I mean, I've been to conferences over the last, before COVID, years of, coming across investors that had never been in healthcare before, thought that they were going to come in, swoop their piece of the pie, and have PTSD because they thought, I've launched and sold several companies successfully. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to change the world in healthcare. All these people in healthcare, can't figure it out. Let me come in and be the hero and save the day. And, they've got the tire marks all over their forehead because they got burned and ran over, because there's just so many complexities to healthcare that we're all familiar with, that, even those people that want to fund the innovations in healthcare need to partner with healthcare experts. So, for even those folks that are in the audience today that don't want to innovate something, still have the opportunity to present themselves as experts to partner with those investors that need to better understand the intricacies of health.
Excellent. So would you propose that innovation is a way out for clinical practice for those that want to explore other things in life? Or would you say starting a second business would be the quickest way to get there? What is your take on innovation versus conventional route?
So I think that it depends on really where the passion lies. So, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, right? You're going to get knocked down 1,000 times. And, you need to be a comeback artist expert, right? and knock down and come back up. And, I know for all the physicians out there, for the most part, feel like they've been knocked down by administration. They've been knocked down by billing and CPT codes and reimbursement and all of these different things. So, you're going to need to have that same mental toughness in entrepreneurship. It'll be different challenges that you face, but it's not going to be necessarily an easy road. I think that's where you kind of have to do some soul searching and find out, is your passion in your purpose about making the difference in patient lives? Is this innovation idea that you have, this problem that you want to solve, is this something that's really so important to you that it keeps you up at night? And that it's when you're discouraged, you're going to be able to find that inner motivation to kind of keep going because you feel like you just cannot do anything else.
Wow. So passion has a lot to do with it, huh?
Definitely.
That's a very good point. So, Doc, this is interesting. I understand you're also involved in books and mastermind groups and on the list goes. And we look forward to inviting you to the Universal School of Health with our executive team. But I'm interested to start listening and learning from your presentation, the wonderful PowerPoint presentation that you have prepared for today. So with that, you have the floor, Doctor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. All right. So hello, everyone. And first, let me just say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to tune in. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to be able to speak in front of you today. And I hope that from the presentation that you will find something in here that inspires you, or there's some kind of strategy and tactic that we talk about that you can apply to your own innovation or your own business that you have today. So as you all know, today we're going to be talking about how doctors can innovate their path to profit. Really exciting, right? So I know that Dr. Kanar has done just a phenomenal job at telling a lot about my bio and my background, but I still want to just kind of touch on a few things that, you may be asking yourself, why should I even listen to Dr. Roxie? And I would say that I'm the leading healthcare commercialization strategist in the world, and I'm probably the only person out there who has a doctorate in commercializing technology innovation in the healthcare space. So kind of a one-of-a-kind knowledge that I've been able to accumulate over the last 7 or 8 years. And it's been a real exciting journey. And everything that I do is really about solving this business problem, this idea of helping people be more successful, be part of that 5% that succeeds that we just talked about. And so I've wrote written a book about this. I'm a professor and teach a lot about these principles and practices. I've advised a lot of startup entrepreneurs as well as corporate innovators, some of the top Fortune 50 and Fortune 100 companies, helped with 3 different successful exits, and then also have a video and podcast show called The Health Innovator Show that I've been producing and hosting for the last 3 years, where I've been able to interview innovators that have been in the trenches, having varying degrees of success, and have really been able to learn a lot from each one of those stories. So what I'm sharing with you today is kind of a culmination of all of the things that I think are important that you would find very interesting, sharing some examples of their stories, and then leading to this framework that I developed. So if you like what you hear today, there's 3 ways that you can kind of learn more or stay connected to me. So you can buy my book. You can find it on Amazon. You can also subscribe to our show. It's available on any of the podcast players around the world. It's called The Health Innovator Show. And then I am extremely active on LinkedIn. I post new content, new videos, and resources that are all free, that are almost all ungated on LinkedIn. So you can find me there as well. So for many of you, I kind of think of you as maybe in 2 different stages or 2 different buckets. A lot of folks that are coming to me that are physicians are really thinking a lot of different things. I'm tired of being enslaved to the administration of a medical practice, or I'm tired of all of the crunching that's happening around billing and the paperwork that's happened, and the loss of control in the business, or how the business has changed, and kind of questioning, do I just retire? What do I do next? And so a lot of folks like you are looking at physician innovators and entrepreneurship. And so it's a real exciting time for innovators to be able to, for physicians to be able to come in and kind of bridge this gap between medicine and technology, and be able to address problems that you've been experiencing and witnessed probably years, day in and day out. And a lot of healthcare, a lot of physicians are really wanting to have their hands in transforming the industry. So kind of when we're talking about passion and purpose, a lot of times I know that we've gone to school to get doctorates in medicine, to be able to practice, to be able to help patients. And sometimes we're really discouraged and feeling like we're really not making a difference. And so becoming a physician innovator is another way to be able to make a difference in the communities that we serve. And like I said, I can imagine that there's a group of you out there that just keep thinking that there's got to be a better way to do the jobs that you do, or all of the different things that you are experiencing in your day-to-day operations. And, there's no better person to innovate those ideas than the physicians that are really at the center of the ecosystem. So before I go into the framework that I developed that's going to help you create that path to profit, I want to be able to just debunk some of the myths that I think physician entrepreneurs or innovators have. So the first one is, a lot of times physicians will think that they really need to build something revolutionary, that, the idea that I have is just not big enough. It's not disruptive. But I would encourage you that incremental innovation is just as important as disruptive innovation or radical innovation. So just because you don't have a revolutionary idea doesn't mean that you don't have a solid business idea or behind you. A lot of times physicians think that they have to quit their job in order to start this business. And some of you do, and that, there's no right or wrong. There's just kind of a different path that each physician innovator might take, but you don't have to necessarily quit your job. I've worked with a number of people that are, what I would consider building their business or building their idea on the side, as I call it, a side hustle. And a lot of times you think, well, I'm not business savvy. And you heard Dr. Kanar and I talk about that. And, business acumen and commercialization expertise certainly play a really critical role in the success of bringing these innovations to market. But you don't have to know everything, because none of us know everything. So, being able to understand where your strength and your expertise is, and then being able to bring in other consultants and advisors or team members partners to kind of augment that is really important. So you could be the one to have the idea, and you can license your IP, your intellectual property, to someone else to actually bring it to market. You could hire someone else to be the CEO of the company and just be the chief medical officer within the organization. There's a number of different ways that you can structure it to where you don't have to have all of the expertise. I mean, even the greatest CEOs for big companies like GE, Facebook, any of those, we know that they have incredible teams behind them, and that's really what helps them become successful. So a couple of pitfalls that I think that I want to encourage you to be mindful of, to watch out for as you go through this process. So this is kind of like flipping the script a little bit of what I had said earlier. So one of the pitfalls is being a full-time physician and in having this innovative idea be your side hustle. So you kind of really need to think about, what does this need to look like for you? I'm working with a specific physician innovator right now who has a full-time job as an orthopedic surgeon and has an idea to innovate. And we're walking through some of the early stage decisions of that process. But part of it is that because this is just a side hustle, it is taking a lot longer. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you want to be able to move, you want to be able to stay focused on this, and you want to be able to move at a certain pace and going through this process, or the window of opportunity can start to close in, the market trends can change, and all of that stuff can affect the timing and the opportunity that you have before you and going to market. So it's not that you can't be a full-time physician with a side hustle. It's just making sure that if you're going to invest in this side hustle, that you've got to be really just as committed to that as you are to your full-time job. Otherwise, you'll fall into that pitfall. So this is another one that I come across a lot, is that, my business is really just a hobby. Now, of course, they're not saying that, but they've been stewing on these ideas. They've been building technologies. They've been building companies for years, but they still don't have any sales. They still don't have any paying customers. And although they might think that they have this business, and I've got this business for 3 or 4 years, really what they have is a hobby. It really doesn't transform from a hobby to a real business until you've got paying customers. And so just being mindful of that, because being a physician innovator can also be a very expensive hobby. And you just want to know going into it, is this a hobby that you're tinkering around with, or is this a innovation that you're really passionate about bringing to market? And with that, I just want to encourage folks to watch out for this common pitfall, which is over developing the product. So again, an example of someone that I've worked with that kind of comes to mind, where they've been developing their innovation for over 3 years. So they have innovated and added features and functionality and every little bell, whistle, and gadget. And the problem is now they've completely overdeveloped the product. They've put so many millions of dollars into this product that they very likely will not get out. And it also it convolutes the value proposition and what they really have in bringing to market. And so, we have to make sure that we're not attaching our egos to the innovations that we're developing, because it's really hard. We kind of need to let go and decide that we're just going to build this minimal viable product, this minimal configuration that we need to take to market to get feedback, to get paying customers, without over developing on that product. And the next pitfall is really tied to the number one reason why innovators don't succeed, is because there is no market for their solution. And this, I think, is probably the biggest trap for physician innovators, that you are completely immersed in your day-to-day operations with a problem that you see, and you know personally how painful and frustrating it is. So you decide that you want to change it and you want to create an innovation to solve this problem. But then you realize that there's not an entire market that is willing to exchange dollars for solving that problem. And a lot of physician innovators don't do that validation work up front because they're just so enamored with the idea. They've got a lot of confirmation bias that gets woven in. And so then you might be, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars invested into this idea, maybe a couple of years into it, only to find that the hard truth is that there really is no market for your solution. One of the things that I see really often is that a physician innovator might think that surely the hospital system or health system that they work with is going to be their first paying customer. It's a given. I experienced the problem. I've talked to my colleagues. They're aware of the problem. We've all agreed that it is important enough to be solved and to be paid for, and only to find out that that health system that you work for sees it as a conflict of interest, and that although they know you and like you and trust you, that they are not going to be your first paying customer. So just being mindful of doing that research up front and not falling into that pitfall of that there's really no market, no paying customers for the solution that you have. So this kind of just takes us to this hard truth that we talked about, this statistic that 95% of innovations fail. And so I want to stress that because it really is important to understand the odds that are stacked against you. But, I want to also encourage you, because there are people out there that are innovating, that are changing the world, that are impacting millions and making millions from their innovations. So although it is a very arduous endeavor and very challenging, but that it is also very rewarding as well. And so with that, I just want to say that if you're the kind of health innovator that wants to impact millions and make millions and really make sure that your innovation gets in the hands of every patient that needs it, that you really need more than an idea and passion. You really need to have this evidence-based framework, whether it's my framework or someone else's, but you need this step-by-step process to be able to go from an idea to this full-scale adoption. Making sure that you've got a framework helps you navigate this decision-making process in a way that's going to be a lot less overwhelming. It's going to show you, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and also, making that whole process more achievable, because you kind of have this roadmap and this GPS to be able to make these decisions along the way. It can be very overwhelming when we are making these decisions of, well, what do I need to do first? Well, what do I need to do next? How do all these decisions kind of interrelate with one another? And, how do I leverage maybe some of the advantages of being able to make these decisions together because they feed off of one another? Having a framework like that helps you maneuver through that process and really increase your likelihood of success. And like I talked about before, is that you really need to have a board of advisors, whether it's an official board of directors or not, but having experts that have not only done this before, because keeping in mind, just because I had success before doesn't mean that I will be successful again. Markets change, customers, consumer needs, patient needs change. But having someone that's helping you, to guide you, to help you stay focused, to help encourage you. I mean, honestly, some of these digital health advisors, some of the roles that I play is just being a encourager and encouraging people to stay the course and helping them maneuver some of the, I call it the troughs of sorrow that you encounter when you're bringing an innovation to market. But these are all things that an evidence-based framework can help with, and also having the right digital health advisor. So before I share this framework with you, I really want to share some real world examples of physicians that I've worked with or that I've had on my show, and share these stories with you, because I think that you'll find them very inspiring and very encouraging. And then you'll kind of see the variance within these different endeavors, to see that, physician innovators don't have to look like a specific way. They really comes in all shapes and sizes. So the first one that I want to share with you is Dr. Tony Rocklin. He is a doctor of physical therapy. And so after many years of being a physical therapist in a practice that he co-owned with other folks, he started to build orthopedic medical devices to help his patients. And that rolled into him having a business on his own, and so much to where he's over time reduced the amount of time that he's actually practicing and providing those physical therapy services into being more of the full-time CEO and running the company and taking these innovations, these orthopedic medical devices to market across the country. Now, Tony's one that I interviewed on my show right at the beginning of the COVID, and he launched an innovation 2 weeks before COVID happened. And so there was a lot of changes, a lot of creativity that he ended up coming up with to be successful in this COVID climate. But here's an example of, someone who's a doctor of pharmacy who sees a need, definitely thinks that there has to be a better way, and then and creates these devices to be able to help his patients and then help people across the country and across the world. So Dr. Tal Rapke, he is the founder of ScalaMed. So here's a medical doctor who who I actually found to be extremely inspiring. So a few years ago, he decided to take almost a whole year sabbatical to kind of figure out what his passion was. What did he want to do next in his career, spending more time with his family, and just really clearing out all of the demands of day-to-day life to kind of search for how could he leave his fingerprint on the world, what was going to be next for him. And that's actually during that sabbatical is when he got the idea for ScalaMed. And I don't hear very many business people or many physicians that are taking a whole year sabbatical for that kind of creativity to be generated, but very, very inspiring and encouraging. And he's doing amazing things. He's an innovator out of Australia, and he's developed a mobile app for prescription management across different business stakeholders as well as patients. And he's had a lot of success over these last few years. Dr. Sandeep Jain. So he is an emergency physician, and he's one of those that was encountering all of these challenges with communicating with other doctors that were part of the patient's care team. And certainly, the way he describes it is kind of digging into the EHR records. You've got all the notes, but it's just pages and pages and pages of notes. So how do you take time to sort through all of that to actually find the meaningful information? So he created this app called Listen MD that's for, he calls it distraction-free doctor to doctor communication. And he was just displaying his product at the HIMSS conference in the United States this, just a couple of weeks ago. So Dr. Scott Sigmund, so this is a very interesting story because here's an example of someone who actually didn't innovate a product or a technology. What he did was he innovated a business model. So he made an agreement. So he's an orthopedic surgeon by trade, but he made an agreement with a manufacturer of a cutting edge laser and created a very unique business model around it. He calls it a business in a box. And he came up with this idea of orthopreneurs and helping orthopedic surgeons or even just entrepreneurs that aren't medical doctors, being able to partner with orthopedics and be able to create what he calls this franchise model of ortho laser. And in that franchise model or that business in a box helps physicians be able to build this business, build the brick and mortar, help with the loan process, help with everything from A to Z, just like you would in any other franchise model. And I wanted to point out this example because a lot of times we think that we have to be able to build a product or service, and we don't even realize that business model innovation is another opportunity for us to be able to, change the world and change our lifestyles. He's in the process of penetrating the entire US market, and very, very exciting stuff. Dr. Ashif Treya, he is another one that I had on the show a while back that is doing some incredible stuff. Very interesting story. So he's a medical doctor by trade, but he's done a lot in working in hospital systems and health systems as chief innovation officers. And he'd come up with a number of different ideas that he tried to commercialize within the health system. And for a variety of reasons, really struggled with being able to do that. So he took the idea on his own outside of the health system. And so he is a co-founder of RX Health, which is a spinoff from Mount Sinai Hospital and the innovation work that they were doing. And he actually built a business around it outside. He had to sell the solution to Mount Sinai's competitors. And once the competitors started paying for it and started paying attention, then he was actually able to go back to Mount Sinai and use that example and motivate them to buy and adopt his solution. But he's doing some incredible things. He's also the co-founder for Node Health. So this is another example where, he didn't build a technology, but he saw a need, that there is an incredible need for all innovators in healthcare to be able to acquire the clinical evidence that's needed to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of our solutions, right? And so he created this company called Node Health to be able to help those innovators be able to have a systematic process to be able to follow for acquiring that clinical evidence and then being able to build their businesses around that. So another unique example. And then last but not least is Dr. Kate Wolin. So she is someone who is an academic researcher, a PhD for many years. And so she was, testing a lot of business ideas within the academic setting. And after many years of doing that, her colleagues encouraged her of like, no, we're really onto something with this idea. And we need someone to be able to step out of the academic world and the healthcare medical system and be able to go out and actually be the CEO of this company and build it. And she did that so successfully. She actually, within about 4 years, took the idea that they had come up with and was able to scale down to Anthem. So a real successful exit strategy that I want to encourage you with. So you can see that these entrepreneurs, these physician innovators can come in all sizes. They can come in all different backgrounds and are all innovating in very different ways. So as you hear this presentation and you kind of hear what I'm saying, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, that all sounds great, but where do I start? Like, how do I begin? I have this idea that I've been facing, this challenge that I've been very frustrated with, and where do I even get started to see if this is something that is a viable business idea or not? And so I'd say, I'm so glad that you asked that. Because I'm going to show you this framework that I developed on how you can innovate your path to profit. And, like Dr. Kanar was saying in the introduction, this framework that I developed is a culmination of extensive research that I've done over the years and many real world examples of being in the trenches with innovators. And so over time, I've been able to see that successful innovators are really following this particular process. And I want to share it with you today. So I call it the Health Innovator's Edge because I feel really strongly that it gives entrepreneurs and physician innovators like yourself an edge over the competition, folks that are building businesses without having any type of evidence-based framework to follow. So it's 9 steps across 3 different stages that every business and every innovation will go through. So first you've got the pre-launch phase, then you've got launch and then scale. And that's really not different than maybe a lot of things that are on the marketplace. But what really is different is some of these key steps within those stages. And so if you heard me speaking earlier, I was saying that one of the number 1 reasons why an innovation fails is because there's no market need. So the first thing that I encourage folks to do is to start off with step 1, which is validation, testing those business ideas. So before you're investing millions of dollars in tons of your time into this idea, to be able to go through this step-by-step framework of being able to test this idea and validate that it is a problem that people want to solve, and it is a problem that people are willing to exchange their hard-earned dollars for. So this is really important important. It's a step that is commonly skipped over because, again, we're so passionate about what we have and what we want to bring to market that we go, yeah, I know, already know that this is going to be a big problem that people want to solve. And so the first step is going to be testing those business ideas and validating that there is demand for your solution before you get started. The second one is the business model. So this is, again, where we kind of automatically from the very beginning, we're thinking of how is this going to be a business? How are we going to make money? Who are all of the different stakeholders? As we know in healthcare, we're talking about multi-sided markets, right? We've got a payer, we've got a patient, the user's not always the buyer. It's very complex. So really being able to sit down and map out that business model and making sure that this is not a hobby, that this is in fact something that you're going to be able to make money from and build a viable business. Is the market big enough? Is the demand big enough? And can you make money building this business? So you might have a great desire for something, but that doesn't mean that you can still be able, that there's a big enough market where you're going to actually be able to make money off of it, or whether you're going to be able to have a successful business. So being able to map out that business model that you're going to test into the marketplace is another really foundational step in the pre-launch. And then pitching. So this is where you're mapping out that story that you're going to tell in a way that's going to be very compelling. It's going to have some emotional appeal. It's going to touch on specific aspects where you're going to motivate investors to invest in your idea. These three steps are so foundational and they are very much often overlooked. As we move into the launch phase and we talk about step 4, 5, and 6, one of the things secrets that I will share with you is that there is a way for you to be able to deploy a co-creation product strategy, which is where you are co-creating your solutions with your target customers. So instead of coming up with all of those ideas of what you're going to build on your own, that you're actually sitting down with your patients, sitting down with payers or other providers or clinicians, and giving them an equal seat at the table and talking about and brainstorming how can you how can you solve this problem? And usually what happens in this phase is that you realize that there's actually more ways that your target audience wants to solve this that you've never thought of. I've never worked on a co-creation exercise where there hasn't been something that's been learned. And frankly, co-creation is a strategy that's been deployed in other industries for many, many, many years. And it's just starting to take off in healthcare. And when you co-create your solutions with your target audience, you are much more likely to build a business and build an innovation that your target customers actually want to buy. So it is a really, really critical step to increase your likelihood of success. This fifth step in the second phase is called pilot. And so I'm sure you're very familiar with this, where, we're as a whole in healthcare, we're very much risk averse, and we need to be able to pilot these solutions to make sure that we are not doing any harm, to make sure that we're actually improving healthcare, that we're not getting the same health outcomes as existing solutions, that we're actually making some improvement there, and being able to demonstrate the efficacy of what you're doing. So the pilot phase is really important. I have seen a lot of folks really get see their businesses crumble in the pilot phase because they're not negotiating things up front that they could. And so they'll do all of these different pilots. Maybe they're spreading themselves way too thin and have too many pilot engagements going on at one time, or they're just not negotiating sales up front when they're negotiating that pilot agreement. So being able to do that is really important to be successful. And then, like I was touching on earlier, if you can weave in this co-creation, pilot, and early market strategy all into one, and what I mean by that is that the people that you select to be part of your co-creation are the same people that are part of your pilot partners, which are the same people that are your early buyers. This is a game changer for building a business that is achievable and for building an innovation that is, I call increasing your likelihood of success, like really like 9x, right? Is being able to, it's a trifecta of being able to integrate these three strategies all in one. It's you don't have to do it in order to be successful, but it will make things a lot more efficient and a lot more effective if you can leverage something like that. And then, of course, we get into the scale. So if you are at this point, you have much to celebrate. You have already developed a really strong foundation. You've already launched into the marketplace. You have paying customers, and maybe you're at this point where you just want more paying customers for your innovation. And there are some specific strategies or steps that are really key to being able to get that hockey stick level of growth and being able to create this repeatable, predictable revenue model. And partnerships plays a critical role. Partnerships, building in a very robust partnership network is going to be the key of what we call crossing the chasm, is getting the going from just having a small handful of buyers for your innovation to having a much deeper customer base. And so being able to build partnerships is critical, but you don't necessarily want to build them too soon, because you've got to be able to validate a lot of things first. And then, of course, you get into the mainstream market, and this is a go-to-market strategy, right? This is how are you going to build the awareness and generate sales from your solution, which is also what you're doing here in the early market. But the distinction in the framework that I developed and what I'm encouraging you to follow today is that the profile of your customer in this launch phase is going to be very different than the profile of your customer in the scale phase. And you want to be able to build a strategy and a plan that's very different in the early market phase than what's in the mainstream market. And then, of course, once you've gotten here, it's really exciting. And now you're dreaming about what's next. What are the additional products and solutions that you're going to have to build and to bring to the marketplace? Or maybe what other market segments, what other customer groups are ripe for your solution? So really being able to build and expand, and really, or maybe it's expanding to new markets where you're going to be more of a global company. Maybe you started in the country that you reside, and now you're entering into different countries. This is where you're up-leveling your business, and you've already demonstrated that you have a predictable revenue model within the market or within the product that you currently have, and now you're ready to expand that on a really great scale. And so, like I said, these 9 steps are really key. I say that if you want to 9x your likelihood to success and really have an edge over the competition, be part of that 5% that succeeds, or even start to move that success rate even more, that you're going to want to follow a step-by-step evidence-based framework similar to this, that has all of these different key steps or key strategies that I've uncovered over the last few years. So I want to thank you all for sticking with me. If you have stayed till the very end, thank you very much. I really treasure you. And like I said, if you liked anything that you heard today and you want more of it, then you can certainly go on to Amazon and buy my book on how health innovators maximize market success. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can just find me at Dr. Roxie Mooney. And you can also subscribe to the Health Innovator Show. The video content is on YouTube, or you can also find those podcast players.
That was wonderful, Dr. Roxie, an amazing presentation. I was just in the background and just looking at the comments from the doctors that are excited to have this information. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I hope that the audience found it valuable and they walk away inspired about being a physician innovator, and have touched on some strategy or tactic that they can deploy in their own businesses.
Hopefully, Doc, we can have you back again next year with some updates, but some amazing stuff you have done for these doctors. And we really need this systematic support and concept. So I'm excited to actually reach out to you myself. But thank you so much for your time, and our colleagues and viewers that would like to reach out, that are in early stage or mid stage or late stage of innovation, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Roxie. Thank you so much for your time and contribution on a Saturday.
Yes, thank you.
Sunday.
Sunday, yes, wherever day it is, for wherever you are, right? And thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.